Thank you. I don't think so. They're gonna check, the attorneys are coming late, so. Yeah, we're gonna start with this trial at 9:15. Oh, we can do that very. All right, thank you. And Deputy Lord, your signatures are here.
We have one up here, so. Just trying to get the cameras. Thank you. Mia?
She's gonna check to see if all the jurors are here, but we're gonna start at exactly 9:15 if all the jurors are here, and then. Yeah. All right, just one second. Yes, Council.
Yes, Your Honor, I'm here this morning on past. Courthouse, I can maybe report the.
Yes, where's Corbin Patswa?
She was present, Judge.
All right, Mr. Patswa, come forward. All right, Mr. Patswa, thank you for dressing appropriately for court. So today is his plea deadline date. What is happening?
I was just waiting for the state. I haven't been able to speak with anybody this morning. I didn't know whether Your Honor wanted me to reset the case or.
No, I mean, is he accepting the state's plea offer or is he asking for a jury trial?
I haven't gotten an offer yet.
No, it says on February 6th, an offer was tendered. That's what you all told me.
Just discuss the facts of the case. Formal offer, yes.
I write everything in the file. State, do you all have an offer available for Corbin Patswa?
I'm sorry, what type of case is this?
It's a published threat. This is,
By special.
it's probably family violence.
It's a
Special crimes. Could you have them
Travis
here?
Rodriguez?
It's trying to.
Okay,
And try to get all of them.
all right, thank you. All right, so we'll come back on your case at 1:15.
Okay, Judge. Judge, I apologize. I've got settings and other counties.
What other counties?
Kendall County.
Mhm. Well, wait out in the hallway for the prosecutor to come.
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you, Judge. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Deputy Laura, all the jurors present? All right.
And 3 minutes.
Oh, do we have them all? Who's missing?
Mario, one of them.
All right, could somebody call him and see where he is? Thank you. Thank you. So do we have any update on that juror? Oh, could I see the jurors list? And who is the person who's not here?
No. this is inside.
Oh, what's the last name? Mario? Okay. And who's this? All right, so State Defense, could you all approach, please? This is the juror that's missing, the first one. Yeah, yeah. So do you all want to proceed without him? Oh, everybody's here. Okay, we didn't have, all right.
When the light up.
Okay, thank you. All right, Donna, you ready? All right, the court is calling 2021 CR 11705, State of Texas versus Luis Angel Alvarado. Could I have parties announced for the record for the state?
Jason Garahan, Daniel Escobar,
Defense?
Scott McCrone.
And are you Mr. Alvarado?
That's not Lewis Alvarado.
Are both parties ready to proceed, state?
State's ready, Your Honor.
Defense?
Defense ready.
All right, thank you. Just have a seat. Deputy Laura told me she's lining everyone up. Diana, how am I listed on here? Is it, because I don't see you in room 6. Yes, it just says March 8th. Okay. Okay, no problem. Okay. All right, thank you. Yes, it is. I see it. We're ready.
All right, for the jury.
Oh, no, please be seated. All right, and just so you all know, I see some of you all may not have pillows, those in the chair, you can take those as well. All right, everyone, please be seated. I hope you all were able to find decent parking. All right. All right, I know you all took the oath downstairs, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the oath that's specifically for this trial. So if you could raise your right hands for me, please. Do you and each of you solemnly swear or affirm in the case of the state of Texas versus Luis Alvarado, you will a true verdict render according to the law and the evidence, so help you God?
I do.
All right, you can lower your hand. All right, state, are you ready to read the indictment?
We are, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
True bill of indictment. In the name and by authority of the state of Texas, the grand jury of Bexar County, state of Texas, duly organized and paneled and sworn as such as the November term 2021 of the 437th Judicial District Court of said county. In said court at said term, do present in and to said court that in the county and state aforesaid and anterior to the presentment of this indictment. Count 1, paragraph A. On or about the 20th day of September 2021, Luis Angel Alvarado did intentionally and knowingly cause the death of an individual, namely Santos Cedillo, hereinafter referred to as complainant, by shooting the complainant with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm. Paragraph B. And on or about the 20th day of September 2021, Luis Angel Alvarado, with intent to cause serious bodily injury to an individual, namely Santos Cedillo, hereinafter referred to as complainant, did commit an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of Santos Cedillo by shooting the complainant with a deadly weapon, namely a firearm, against the peace and dignity of the state.
All right, with regards to count 1, paragraph A and B, how do you plead? Guilty, not guilty, or no contest? All right, thank you. You may have a seat. All right, state, are you prepared to proceed with the opening statements?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and tell you now's the time we're going to start filling in those puzzle pieces that I spoke about at voir dire.
This happened back on September 20th, 2021. And actually, it sort of starts the day before, if not days before or months before. You're going to hear from the victim's common law wife, Maria Hernandez. You're going to hear from some other witnesses also, but particularly Maria Hernandez is going to be an eyewitness to this. I'm going to also tell you right now that there was a video of it filmed by Maria and also a friend of hers, Charlie Arriaga, that was also at the scene. There's also another individual that was at the scene, Darela Morales. She also was at the scene. You will hear from each one. Will hear from some of these witnesses. Some witnesses will be missing. Those are some of those puzzle pieces that are going to be missing in any case. And I'll tell you that at one point off of the Somerset and Pyron Road, right here on the lower southwest side, that's where Maria and Santos Cedillo, the victim, lived. They lived there for years in an apartment complex. More than a few months prior to the murder of that night, Charlie and Darela had moved in. They had friended Santos and also Maria, and they had been talking. And they conversed and hung out on their patios together throughout this time and those months. 2 months roughly before the murder happens, the defendant, Luis Alvarado, moves in. And from that point, they'd have conversations, run-ins, discussions. They'd had disagreements, but also had just discussions like any other neighbors would have. Were they getting along perfectly fine? We're here for a reason, aren't we? So obviously not. There were signs of disrespect on both sides. I'm not going to paint my victim as a perfect individual because he wasn't. He wasn't a model citizen. He was a convicted felon, but he had paid his price and gotten out of prison and was working and producing in our community. He had also befriended the defendant, discussed with the defendant about not doing certain things, being careful of not getting into a bad area or bad things. Talked about tattoos. You can see from the defendant, he has several tattoos all over his face. You'll see that he has several all over his body. The victim does too. He has tattoos on his face. His nickname was H-Town because he was from Houston and he had tattoos of Houston Rockets and also the Texans, things like that. So this is not a question about tattoos on a face or something like that. We are talking about the facts. I don't want you to judge the book by its cover, but look into this, dive into this case and understand it intricately. The fact is that in this community, in this area that they lived and how they lived their lives may be different than yours. You may not understand it exactly, but during this trial, I want you to dive into it and listen to language that they use, words that they use, and just the type of atmosphere that they lived in. You're going to see that the night before that the defendant and Charlie Arriaga decided to have a fist fight. You're going to also see a video of that fist fight, a portion of that. You'll see the aftermath of that fist fight. You'll also hear that after that fist fight, nobody died. No weapon was fired. It was a fist fight. It was a normal day for this type of situation in this area. They did this regularly, a fist fight. Nobody died. No gunfire. The cops would be called out regularly to this area. The cops would show up. You're here in that video on that fight. You're going to hear Maria saying it. Cops are coming. Cops are coming. Your shit's going to get in trouble. You're going to hear language. You're going to hear those individuals talking. You're going to hear Santos talking. He's on that video too the night before. But it's a one-on-one fight between Charlie Arriaga and Luis Alvarado. It's a fair fight. And in fact, Luis Alvarado probably got the best of it. He's actually is the one that sort of, got Charlie off. So after the fight, you can see that they're talking still. You can see that Santos Cedillo is talking to the defendant. That night before, Maria steps in, sort of backs him off, and then it's over that night because the cops are coming. These individuals don't want to be around cops. They don't like cops. They don't like when cops are coming out. Whoever calls the cops is in trouble. If you think you call the cops, you're going to be in trouble. But Maria was saying, I call the cops, I call the cops. Going to the next day, the day of the murder. You're going to hear the evidence come in. You're going to see that video. You're going to hear that throughout the day, there's not really a lot of interaction between the defendant and the victim and other individuals during the day. There is some little interaction. Then you're going to hear going into that night that there's some words exchanged. There's more discussions. There's more disrespect, both sides. But the defendant leaves in his car, goes out, comes back after being out. When he pulls up, he pulls past the victim, Maria, Charlie, and Dariella. They're outside on their little patio in a little breezeway at the apartment complex. When you see that, or when he sees that, he pulls up. When he pulls up, Santos is angry. He does go up to him. You can say rush or whatever you may want to say, but he doesn't jump on him. He doesn't attack him. In fact, he never touches him. And I'll tell you this, on the day of this murder, no matter what, Santos never touches the defendant, much less gets within striking distance of him. You're going to see the video of these individuals when Santos confronts him. You're going to see that the defendant at all times has a gun in his right hand. At all times. He's displaying that gun. He's talking back to Santos. Back up, bitch. Back up, bitch. Santos is like, come on, let's fight. Let's have a fist fight. That's what Santos wants. Is that the best idea to do in front of a person that's holding a gun? Probably not. But you're going to see Santos was restrained. He did not go towards that defendant, this defendant, and jump on him, swing at him, grab at him. Nothing of that sort. He was doing what Santos Cedillo and several of those people, including the defendant and that community, did day in, day out. Let's have a fist fight. Let's solve this problem. Santos was like, let's go. He's standing there. You'll see in the video at some point, you hear Maria in the background. I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to call the cops. I'm going to call the cops. At one point, she says, the cops are coming. The cops are coming. You're going to see in that video a different defendant at that point. A different Luis Alvarado. He's standing there and he's waiting. And when Santos Cedillo is about 4 to 5 feet away from him, with his arms outstretched like this, no weapons on his hands, you'll see it plain as day in that video. The defendant raises his gun and starts shooting at Santos Cedillo. At that point, the person videoing ducks down. So the video goes off. Rather, the video portion that you can't see it because it's facing the ground. But listen to it. You're going to hear 5 additional shots. There are 5 to 6 shots. It's not a self-defense shots. It's pow, 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 pow. So keep that in mind when you hear those shots. Because when the medical examiner comes in and testifies, you're going to find out that Santos Cedillo was shot 3 times in the back. That he was running away from this defendant for his life. You'll see that's not self-defense. That's plain old-fashioned murder. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, defense.
Here, please, court. Good morning, everyone. Lewis moved into the Granada apartment when he had just turned 21. He moved in there with his 1.5-year-old son and his son's mother. For about the first month he was there, everything was fine. There was no conflicts with anyone. He pretty much didn't even associate with Santos Cedillo or with Charlie. He was just doing his thing, being a good dad with his son's mom. After about a month, he and his wife got into some issues. You'll hear she caught him cheating and she left him. She left him with the son. He was there at the apartments by himself. Having just turned 21, he regrets it now, but he kind of went crazy going out after that. Started going out to the clubs, strip joints, bringing girls home. This was right in the days after she left. You're going to hear that when he would come home, Santos and Charlie would be out there and be like, look at this dude, because he'd be coming home with girls, sometimes 2 girls at a time. But nothing was said. That's just what was going on. Until about 4 or 5 days after that, you're going to hear that Santos called Lewis over and said, hey man, I got one of what you have, and pulled out a gun, had a green beam pointed at him and said, look, I got one too. And Lewis says, what are you talking about, man? I ain't never showed you my gun. I don't have nothing like that. And he goes, oh, come on, man. I know what you're about. Look at me. I'm about that life too. And he pulled up his shirt, said, look, I've been shot. I've done time. I've been in the pen, man. I know what's up. And Lewis was like, what are you telling me these things for? What's this, why are you telling me these things? And ended up just telling him, look, man, I gotta go inside, and went inside. And it was like Santos wanted to show that he was the bad dude on the block. For some reason, he didn't like Lewis at that point. Lewis got that feeling, but whatever. Lewis was going to go about and do his business. But after that day, it kind of started escalating. He would come home with girls or with other people, and Santos was always outside with Charlie and would start telling him things, calling him names. Or if he'd have a girl and they'd start laughing at him. Look at this dude. Hey, fool, what you got there? And just embarrassing him, just annoying stuff. And so Lewis would chirp back at him. Hey, F you, man. He wasn't just going to take all this. So as Jason said, there did start a little conflict. During that time, though, Lewis kind of started making friends with Charlie, though. Charlie lived next door to him. Santos is the deceased that lived upstairs. He started hanging out with Charlie, not hanging out, but Charlie would come over, they'd have a couple beers. To be honest, they'd smoke a little marijuana, hung out a few times. But Santos didn't seem to like that. Santos would still mad dog Lewis, would still chirp at him. Hey, his favorite word to use was, I'm not going to say it in here with all the ladies, but the P word in English and in Spanish. That became his favorite word for Lewis, calling him that word. And Lewis would chirp back, F you, what's your problem with me? But they never faced off. It never got more than that. Until one night that Lewis was going out to the club with a friend of his and 2 girls. They're leaving the apartments, they're getting in the car, and this was still when Charlie and Lewis were still friendly with each other. And Lewis invited Charlie. Lewis would yell at Charlie, hey man, why don't you come with us? We're going to the club. Charlie said, nah, man, I don't want to go. And Lewis yelled back at him, oh man, you're whooped, and started laughing, and just like guys mess with each other. Well, you'll hear from Charlie that after Lewis left, Santos starts getting in Charlie's head. Man, why do you let that dude disrespect you like that? That wasn't cool. You shouldn't put up with that. Why don't you call him back? Tell him you want to throw around with him. I guess that's how they call it these days, throwing around, meaning fight. And you'll hear that Charlie did that. Called him and texted him, hey, come back, let's throw around. And Lewis was like, what is that about, man? I ain't gonna, for what? So he didn't go back. He went out and went to the club. He comes back that night, and like so many nights before, Santos is out there and Charlie's out there, and Lewis is like, what the hell? And so Charlie comes up, says, let's throw that round. You disrespected me, Lewis, like, whatever, man. And so he and Charlie do get into, if you want to call it a fight, they each throw maybe 2 punches at each other. You'll see that on the video. It was a nothing deal. After the fight, you'll see a video of after that, and they're walking in the parking lot, and Lewis is telling Charlie, dude, why are you letting, pointing to Santos, why are you letting that dude get in your head? Why are you messing with me? And you can't hear everything he says, but he even looks at Santos like, what's, you know, why don't y'all just, you know, what's your problem with me? But that's it for the night. And he goes inside. That upsets, you'll hear from Charlie if they bring him in. You'll hear from Charlie. That really upset Santos even more. Santos was upset that Charlie didn't kick his butt, and that afterwards, Lewis was even giving Santos hell because he knows that Santos put Charlie up to it. You'll hear the next day, they get, the next day, you'll hear from a mechanic who comes over to look at Lewis's car, to replace his windshield. The guy goes over there and is replacing his rear windshield, and he'll tell you about hearing Santos, and Santos is up at the window from his apartment yelling down at Lewis during the day, calling him a P, you P this, P that in Spanish, I'm gonna beat your ass. And the mechanic's even like, what, man, dude, telling Lewis, what's that all about? Lewis like, man, I don't know. But that Lewis he's not engaging, he's not yelling back at Santos, he's not doing none of that, but it's just so out of the ordinary for someone to be yelling. Slow down, I'm sorry. But it struck him as very disturbing that the degree that this guy was yelling at Lewis, things that he was calling him. You'll hear also from Lewis's mom at this time. Now, let me tell you one thing. You're going to hear, as Jason said, Santos Cedillo, ex-con, over 30 years old. Lewis barely turned 21. Santos, 220 pounds, not that tall, but weighs 220. Lewis is a lot bigger now. You'll hear at that time, he was 130 pounds, almost 100 pounds smaller than Santos. Younger, never been in prison, never had a felony before. Jason told you that Santos had done his time and paid his due. And well, when this happened, he was on bond for a serious offense, even wearing a monitor. So no, he hadn't reformed himself. Just a tough guy. He's just the kind of guy you walk and you just don't make eye contact with. And you'll see that in the videos. You'll see that in the pictures. So Lewis is afraid of the guy. Now, he's not going to admit it because in the streets, you don't show fear, especially in that neighborhood, especially in those apartments. So he's not picking a fight with him, but he's not backing down and letting that guy, quote unquote, bitch him either. The guy's telling him stuff. He'll tell him F you just because that's what those guys do. That's how they handle themselves. But he wanted no part of Santos Orozco. Santos is a true tough guy. Been to the pen, big, mean, and meant business. You'll hear from Lewis's mom that he even called her mom, this guy's menacing me. I'm kind of telling her he was afraid to be there. You'll hear that the mom said, well, we'll leave, come home, or I'll get you a motel until we get another place. And Lewis said, yeah, I need to move out of here, but for now, I'll just stay away from it. You'll hear on the, You'll hear that on the day that this happened, where the mechanic's hearing this guy yelling at him and stuff, getting in his head, that he goes over to another friend's house that evening. And he's hanging out at that other friend's house. And that other friend is a very close friend of his. And he's telling him, this dude at the apartments, man, I don't even want to go back there. They're out there waiting for me all the time, giving me shit. I don't, And he asked that friend even, hey man, why don't you come over? Because he starts getting late, about 10:30, whatever. He's going to go home. He says, man, why don't you come over with me? And the guy's going to say he didn't think it was that serious. He didn't feel like it was late. So he told him, man, just go straight into your apartment. Don't even talk to the dude. Don't even engage, nothing. Just go and go straight into your apartment. So Lewis goes home to the apartment. That's where you'll see the video, as Jason said, he gets to the apartment, drives in. He doesn't even have the door out. Now, mind you, Charlie will tell you that Santos is really upset. I think Mr. Garahan even had mentioned that Santos had gotten more and more upset with him. He didn't like that Charlie didn't kick his butt and that Lewis gave Santos some lip for putting Charlie up to it. It was just building and building and building. You'll hear from Santos' wife that Santos has so much antagonism, so much rage against him that at night before going to bed, he's talking to his wife about him. 30-something-year-old man talking to his wife going to bed about this 21-year-old kid who lives downstairs, who he just has such a problem with, he can't get it out of his head. So this night, that's it. He's finally going to do something himself because he doesn't think that this kid respects him enough. He's the alpha dog of the apartments, and he's going to prove it to this kid because he doesn't think he respects him enough. You're going to see in the apartment, he comes up to that car. By the way he acts, I'm shocked that the autopsy report admittedly doesn't show drugs in his system, doesn't show meth or something, because the way he's acting, y'all are going to be surprised. No normal individual acts that way. Now, he is 2.5 times the legal limit drunk. 2.5 times drunk. So he has had a lot to drink that night. And he walks up, and from the point that Lewis gets out, he's not doing like Jacob, come on like this. He's menacing. He's a 220-pound dude picking up his shirt and doing stuff like, y'all would be like, damn. He's got shorts on and he's doing this, like that. And Lewis is like, he gets out and he does have the gun because this guy's doing this stuff. And you'll see it with your own eyes. Never picks a gun up, points to him. He's like, back up. He wants no part of it. It's clear Lewis wants no part of fighting this guy. And Santos isn't about a couple punch fight. You'll see he ends up taking off his shirt, doing like this. I'm gonna beat your ass. You're not, Lewis is telling him, back up. I just want to go inside. I just want to go in my apartment. Not antagonizing him, not telling him crap, saying, back up. I just want to go in. Santos is out of control. His wife comes. She tries to get between them in front of Santos. Santos, no, get out of the way. No, and keeps coming towards him. Lewis backs up. This goes on for 7 minutes. The video is 7 minutes where Lewis is backing up. Man, he backs up probably 20, 30 yards down the parking lot. He doesn't want any part of it. He tries to walk to the side. Santos walks over. Santos means business, and Lewis is scared as hell. It ain't going to be a little fist fight. He's going to beat the hell out of him, and Lewis knows it. They start yelling, or Maria yells, the cops are coming. Lewis knows she's not calling the cops that night. For one thing, there's only 2 left out there. What's his name? Charlie is out there filming. He's the one who filmed it. And Santos, his wife, went to try to break it up and then comes and says, the cops are coming, call the cops. No, nobody has a phone to call the cops out there. It's just Maria and Charlie. Plus, the night before they called the cops because it was Charlie and Lewis fighting. On this time, Santos is on bond for a felony serious offense, drunk as heck, threatening. She's not going to call the cops on her own husband. Plus, she doesn't even have a phone. So anyway, the bottom line, Lewis knows nobody's calling the cops, and this guy won't stop. So what you'll see, he's about this far away from him, and he does. He picks up the gun, and he shoots it. If he wanted to shoot Santos, if he wanted to murder him or harm him this close, you're going to hit somebody. You're not going to miss accidentally. He shot a warning shot. He shoots like that, a warning shot, and then he runs to try, there's a fence, and he tries to run past him. Unfortunately, the phone Charlie takes off running into his apartment. And so you hear stuff, but you won't see it. But you'll hear when Lewis gave a statement to the detectives and when Lewis takes the stand, because he will take the stand, even though he doesn't have to, and to tell you again what happened that night. That he shoots a warning shot and he starts running. That Santos flinches, but when he's running after him, when he's trying to run by him, that Santos goes after him. He'll say he shoots again, and he keeps running and he shoots back to get him away from him so he can get away. If he wanted to shoot Santos, he would have done it with that first shot right in front of him. He was scared to death. He was running and he did what he had to do. You'll see that Lewis never wanted to hurt Santos, to hurt anyone. He wanted to be left alone. He wasn't the antagonist. Santos was the alpha male. Santos felt disrespected. And ultimately, his goal was to just beat Lewis's butt into respecting him. Lewis did that night what he had to do. He's not guilty of murder. Thank you.
All right, State, you may call your first witness.
Yes, the state calls Officer Stephen Ramos.
Can you raise your right hand for me, please? Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God? All right, if you'll have a seat, just make sure you keep your voice up so that ladies and gentlemen, the jury can hear. If you'll state your name for the record and spell it.
Stephen Ramos, STEPHENRAMOS.
All right, State.
Thank you, Your Honor. Officer Ramos, can you please just introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Stephen Ramos. I'm a police officer with the San Antonio Police Department. I'm assigned to the South Patrol Tango Shift, specifically the 63 section.
And just briefly, can you explain to the jury what your current duties are as an officer?
I'm a patrolman, meaning that anytime someone calls 911, I respond to those calls, pretty much kind of like a call taker, responding to addresses, accidents, incidents at home, family disturbance, stuff like that.
And are you a certified police officer in the state of Texas?
Yes, sir.
And you obviously had to go through training, the police academy, to become a police officer, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Let's go to why you're here today. September 20th, 2021. Were you dispatched to a scene at, I believe, roughly around 11:30 at night?
Yes, sir.
And what scene or address rather were you dispatched to?
If I can have a copy of my report, please. Sorry.
Yes.
If you can just view that and see, is that a copy of your police report, sir?
Yes, sir.
And can you just tell me now, please don't read directly from it, but just so you can refresh your memory and then answer the questions if you can. Can you tell the jury what address you were dispatched to that night?
1404 Somerset Road.
Okay, and tell the jury why you were dispatched to that location.
We were dispatched for a shooting in progress call.
And what do you mean by shooting in progress?
So the way anytime someone is actively shooting a gun, there's an active disturbance involving a gun that's been fired, call takers will put out a shooting in progress call. So that's kind of the incident that was coming out at the time.
So at this location, did you end up arriving at this location?
Yes, I arrived on scene at 1404 Somerset.
And when you arrived, can you describe the scene to, well, first describe the location. What was the location that you were dispatched to? Was it a house, apartment, or a business?
The incident location is a apartment complex. It's a smaller apartment complex that we arrived to just off the on Somerset Road.
And so when you did arrive, please describe to the jury what you saw.
When I first arrived, there was a small crowd gathering in the breezeway, as well as there's some individuals hovering over the victim at the time. They were trying to get our victim to try to start breathing and responsive. I arrived and I immediately started to try to take a medical action on the victim.
And so I guess that's what's considered like first aid on the victim.
Yes.
And you say victim, do you recall what that victim's name was?
If I refer back to my report,
Yeah, no problem.
Santos Cedillo.
And Santos Cedillo, why were you administering first aid? Did you notice any wounds on the individual?
Yes, when I first approached, he had blood on his body as well as an obvious gunshot wound to his chest.
And I know that you're not an expert or anything, but do you know if that was an entrance or an exit wound or?
I did not know the type.
But you did see a wound and you did see blood.
Yes,
And where was this, where was Santos Cedillo? Where was he at, like in the location?
so right there is a breezeway in the apartment complex, and just off corner of the breezeway, he was laying down face up with just in front of the parking lot where cars were parked at.
And were there other individuals around him, you said?
Yes, there is a female that she is listed as our victim, our witness, as well as another male that was hovering on top of the male.
And I believe you stated that they were trying to help the victim. What did you do for the victim? What type of first aid did you administer?
When I first got there, I tried to get a pulse. I was unable to feel anything, so I attempted to put a chest seal on his chest. What that does, it kind of traps the air so that way no further blood can escape. After that, I started to begin chest compressions to try to get him to become responsive.
Did the victim ever become responsive?
No,
And did you ever check for that pulse? Did you ever find a pulse on the victim?
no,
And so for purposes that of you administering first aid, the victim was unresponsive and did not have a pulse.
correct.
At some point, did you stop first aid on the victim?
Yes,
And I guess what did medics, or not medics, I guess EMS, I guess medics, did they show up on the scene?
yes. When the fire department showed up on scene, I stopped my medical aid and allowed them to treat the victim.
And at some point during this time, did the victim ever regain consciousness or respond?
No,
Was the victim ever pronounced deceased at that location?
yes.
After, I guess, that initial arrival and your first aid attempt on the victim, what were your duties after that?
After that was to gather information, have officers separate witnesses, and kind of try to figure out what happened. At that point, now it becomes an investigation.
And I guess, is that this common in any arrival at any scene? Is that your duties at every scene to
Correct.
just assess it, administer first aid if you need to, and then also then talk to and investigate the location? Is that right?
Correct.
And so at this particular location, let's talk about people that you may have talked to. Again, I don't want you to get into what they say because that would be hearsay and that can't come out from the jury. But can you tell me individuals that you spoke with at the scene, and did you write down their names in your report?
Yes, one individual I spoke to was listed as our W1 Maria Hernandez.
Okay,
And then another one was our W2, which would be Charlie Arriega, and our witness 3, Dariela Morales.
okay. And I mean, just to sort of clarify this, you're talking about W1. What does W1 stand for?
So in our report system, W1 just kind of helps me identify them in short term. So witness, when I refer to W, just so you know.
So W1 stands for witness one,
Yes,
W2 stands for witness two, W3 stands for witness three.
correct.
And just want to clarify that for the jury because they're not going to have a police report to look at. And it doesn't come in evidence. So I just want you to be able to clarify that with the jury, okay?
Yes.
And you spoke to each of these individuals. Did other officers arrive at the scene also?
Yes.
And you're an officer, and I guess what's higher than you? Is there like detectives,
A patrol, sergeant will be higher than me.
a sergeant? And then what about detectives?
Detectives are categories pretty much at the same rank. However, they do have a different role. They play an investigative role with the department.
Okay, and so the detectives arrived at the scene.
Correct.
And since this is, I guess, classified as a homicide now, homicide detectives arrived.
First we notify, based off policy, you notify our night investigators, and then our night investigators will notify homicide due to the fact that it turned out it was a murder.
And through your investigation and that particular night, did y'all have a name of the suspect in this case?
Yes,
And who was that?
that is Mr. Luis Alvarado.
And so that's an individual that was named that night through your investigation that was a suspect that apparently did the shooting of the victim. Is that right?
Correct.
And did you have a body cam on that night?
Yes.
Yeah, Coach Sean.
Yes.
Also, I'm gonna show you what's Smart State Exhibit number one. And actually, the one is the actual outside. It's the little folder that the CD is in. Do you know what this is?
Yes.
And is this a copy of a video?
Yes.
And what's that video?
It is my body worn camera.
And has it been altered in any way?
It's been muted.
Muted. So originally your body cam had audio and everything like that. Is that correct?
Correct.
But we muted it due to purposes that to enter it into court. But this is an accurate and fair depiction of what you saw that night, or rather what your body cam caught.
Correct.
And can you show the jury, do you have your body cam on right now?
I do not.
Where would your body cam be?
My body cam will be on my chest plate, right where the camera holder is.
And I see you're pointing sort of like over your heart or under your badge. That's
Correct.
where your body cam would be. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's where your body cam was on this night?
I would not be able to know. I do move it a lot.
It was on your chest though.
It was on my, yes.
I'm gonna, the state officer state exhibit number one, and to evidence, we're gonna tender to defense for any objections.
No objection.
All right, state's exhibit number one is admitted without objection.
Have you published?
Yes.
All right. We're playing the video right now, and since it's all muted, I guess I can talk. Because usually when it's audio, I can't be speaking during the video. This is obviously from the video. It's your body cam's on your chest and you're in your car. Is that, or your patrol car, is that correct?
Correct.
And being dispatched to the scene and. No, this is. Replay. There you go. Okay. This is you, what are you doing right now?
I'm trying to identify where our victim is at.
And at this point, this is the woman and the man that you mentioned in your earlier testimony,
Correct.
and this individual that's laying on the ground is, who? Is that Santos City?
Correct.
And it looks like there's a wall of some sort. Is that the apartment complex to the right of the victim?
Correct.
And it looks like where the victim, where are they located at? Is it in the parking lot or is it is there a sidewalk?
So between the building and the parking lot, there's a small little sidewalk.
And then what are you doing right there?
Right there, I began to put the chest seal that I described earlier.
And during this course of you doing chest compressions, just to clarify, the victim never responded or regained consciousness?
Correct.
And it looks like right there, you removed something from his pocket. What did you remove from his pocket?
A pocket knife.
Pocket knife. And was it clipped in?
Correct.
Okay. And is that the breezeway you're speaking of earlier?
Correct.
And this is obviously a two-story complex, is that right?
Correct.
Now, at this point, since the victim, you determined that he had no pulse and unresponsive, I believe the early testimony you stated that then you start, in a sense, the duties after that to, I guess, look at the scene and make sure you evaluate the scene.
Correct.
And are y'all looking just for witnesses or are y'all looking for other things?
We're looking for evidence, witnesses, maybe security cameras, something of that matter.
And did you go to other apartments or I guess doors and knock on some of those doors to see if anybody saw anything?
Yes.
And did you find any additional witnesses other than the ones that you listed in your report?
I made contact with one person that lived in the corner. She didn't see anything. She kind of just heard a speeding off car.
And was there any other additional evidence that you were responsible for?
No.
Stop it, sorry. At this point, we'll stop the video and we'll pass the witness you on.
Good morning, Officer Ramos.
All right.
You mentioned that the first call that came out was for a shooting in progress, correct?
The call was coming out for shooting party. Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that the caller, when they called in, it was during the actual shooting. Wouldn't you agree?
Correct.
So it could have been that there was a shooting and right after the shooting, a caller calls in and it's still a shooting in progress,
Correct.
correct? And you mentioned there were no other witnesses that you found that were outside during the shooting or right before the shooting.
That I found no.
Just the only ones you know of were Maria, which was the decedent's wife, correct? Maria Hernandez?
Correct. Sorry, I just want to confirm.
Yes, sir. And then Charlie Arriaga. I don't know if I have his last name correctly.
Yes.
And then Charlie's wife, Dariela, correct?
Correct.
No other witnesses with any knowledge whatsoever or any observations that they were out there while this was going on, correct?
That I identified. Correct.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Pass the word.
No further questions, Your Honor. May this be released?
All right, is this witness excused for subject protocol?
Excuse you.
All right, is either party invoking the rule?
Yes, please.
All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you cannot discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. And you're excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, state, call your next witness.
The state calls Maria Hernandez.
If you'll raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, just make sure you keep your voice up so that the jurors can hear. If you could state your name for the record and spell it, please.
My name is Maria Hernandez, MariaHernandez.
State.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I messed up your name the first time. I said Marie, but it's Maria,
Yes, sir.
and it's Maria Hernandez.
Yes.
Can you please just introduce yourself to the jury?
No, my name is Maria Hernandez.
And I don't know if I can, maybe just, can you scoot up a little bit, make sure the microphone's there? Okay. There you go. All right. Well, Maria, let me go ahead and just go ahead and ask you, how do you know Santos Cedillo?
He's my husband.
And how long was he your husband?
I would say 4 years.
And I mean, to be fair, y'all are common law, right?
Common law.
Okay,
We've known each other for 7 years.
7 years. And but y'all were married for, considered your
4 years.
husband and wife for 4 years.
Yes.
And so throughout that time, you've known him for at least 7 years. At the time of his murder, was he were y'all living together?
Yes,
And were y'all living off of 1404 Somerset Road in an apartment complex?
yes,
And I mean, let me ask you, I mean, it was spoken about in opening, Santos Cedillo had been to prison before, is that right?
yes,
And he had gotten out of prison. And he was, just living his life at that point, is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And y'all lived in this apartment complex, and how long had y'all lived in that apartment complex?
4 years.
4 years? And throughout that time, those 4 years in the apartment complex, did y'all have any other issues with any other tenants other than the defendant in the case?
No,
And did y'all talk to the other people that lived in the apartment complex?
yes,
And over those 4 years, y'all had discussions or even hung out with individuals that lived in that apartment complex, is that correct?
yes,
And so throughout those 4 years y'all lived there, y'all had interactions with other tenants or other people that live there. Would you consider some of those people friends of y'all's?
well, we were neighbors, we saw each other every day, so we just looked out for one another.
I guess I know some of my neighbors that I probably don't talk to that much. So,
Well, I mean, and where we live at, some of them don't really, sometimes they don't have food, and we would see that they didn't have stuff, so we would give them food and, let them use some of our Wi-Fi, if they need it on their phone to, call their mom or whoever.
and so in this area that you lived in and the community that you lived in, sort of describe it to the jury, just, I mean, day in, day out.
Well, most call it the ghetto. A lot of bad things happen around there. And there's a lot of crime, a lot of drugs. And it's not somewhere you want to go at night. It's not a good area.
And so the people that live in that area know that about this area.
Yes,
And I guess, let me go back to your husband, Santos Cedillo. He obviously had been to prison before, he was
yeah.
out. Defense counsel brought up in the opening that he had an ankle monitor on because he was out on bond for being charged with something, is that right?
Yes.
And was never,
It wasn't someone who lived in the apartment complex. They were visiting a person at the apartment complex.
so I don't want to go into details about that, but I mean, Santos was out there and was in this community.
Yes.
What was Santos, can you describe Santos to the jury? I mean, was he a hothead or was he mean? Was he nasty? What's
No,
describe?
he's a good guy. He was a very good guy. One thing about Santos is he was a protector. He was a dad. He was a loving person. And if anybody put me in danger, he would address it, and he would address it the correct way, because there's a way to correct things, in the streets, because that's what it's called, basically, in the streets. There's a certain way you correct things, and you don't go and beat somebody up, or there's certain levels to things that you go by, and he would address it and and speak on it. And a lot of people were like, okay, they would understand it because they're from the streets, they understand this world. And he was a good guy. He wasn't a monster. He wasn't this person that just would go over there and just beat you up or go in and do something bad to you. he was not that person. He was a kind person. He cared about kids, everybody that knew Santos. He was a protector. He loved his family. And, he would do anything for his family, his daughter, and,
Okay, well, I'm sorry.
oh, sorry.
No, I mean, that's what I wanted you to explain to the jury. Now, Santos obviously had done some bad things in his past.
Of course,
I mean, you'd seen Santos when he's angry.
yes.
I mean, in this particular night, he was angry was he angry at the defendant in the case?
Yes, he was.
Okay, and we'll get to that. I'm just trying to, ask you certain questions, okay? So, I mean, Santos is what you described as a good guy, but I mean, he had a side that where if he felt, tell the jury, if he felt like you were in harm's way or disrespected, that he was gonna address that with whoever did that.
Yes.
Okay. So that's a little description of Santos. Well, tell me this, there's other individuals that lived in this apartment at the time back on September 20th, 2021, is that right?
Yes.
And those individuals, Daniela Morales
Yes.
and also a Charlie Arriaga.
Yes.
And how do you know those two individuals?
They were my neighbors. They lived underneath us. We lived at the top apartment and they lived underneath us.
Okay, and so they lived on top and y'all lived on the bottom.
No, we lived at the top and they lived at the bottom.
Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? Let me, Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. First, I'm going to show you, Mr. Hernandez, what's marked state exhibit number 2. Do you know what that is?
The apartment complex.
And what is that? Is it a map of the apartment complex?
Yes.
I guess what we call a bird's eye view.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
right? And then I'm going to show you what's marked state exhibit number 3. And what is that?
That would be the front of, the apartment.
Okay,
This is where we stayed and this is where, Dahlia and, Charlie stayed.
I'm going to hand you a pen on
Mhm.
state exhibit number 3. Please put, circle the spot where y'all lived. Okay. And go ahead and just put your first name there. And then circle will, Dariella, is that,
Well, I call her D because I could never pronounce her name.
okay, I'm with you on that. So go ahead and put her, D, and that was where D and Charlie lived.
Yes.
Now, did D and Charlie live there with anybody else?
Yes, they had their daughter.
How old was her daughter?
She was, I believe, 2 years old at the time.
2 years old at the time? Okay. And can you also look at state exhibit number 2 and circle the apartment that y'all lived in and circle the apartment that the Charlie and Dariella lived at?
Huh?
Yeah, yes,
Oh,
on
on this
state
one.
exhibit number
Okay.
2. All right, and then just for the purposes of making sure we're clear here, do you remember where the suspect in this case, where he lived at?
Yes.
And can you put an X where he lived at? On both state exhibit number 2 and 3. Okay. Thank you. We're gonna move to enter into state exhibit number 2 and number 3. We'll tender to defense for any objections.
No objection.
All right, states exhibits number 2 and 3 are admitted without objection.
Maybe I publish it to the jury.
Yes.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm not computer literate here, so I am going to show you to the jury the state exhibit number 2. Now, I'll point out that you circled this top apartment right there. And that's where you live with Santos, is that right?
Yes,
And then below is where Dariella and Charlie live, is that correct, with their
Yes.
baby?
yes,
And then you put an X over here on the corner of this corner area, and is that where the suspect, the defendant in this case lived?
yes.
I'm gonna show you state exhibit number 3. There we go. Again, the top portion, you put Maria and circled, that's where you live with Santos. And then the bottom portion, where Dariella and Charlie lived, and then the defendant in this case lived down at this location down here, is that right?
Yes,
Okay. And is this the apartment? Did y'all live in that apartment for 4 years?
yes.
And then when did Charlie and Dariella move in? How long before, let's say, the night of this murder? How long before?
They were there about a year,
Okay. And had y'all, I guess, did y'all talk to them? Did y'all hang out together? What did y'all do, or how did y'all converse?
Not at first. We didn't really talk to them at first. What brought us close was a little girl. Her name was Hennessy, and we had a thing for babies. So, you know, we just like would, you know, she won our heart.
So up until the point of this shooting that murdered that night, had y'all been in contact with them? Did y'all hang out together, or what did y'all do?
Yes, we cook out.
And where would y'all cook out?
We would cook out if you see where I circled, where that gate is, we would put the little barbecue pit, come a little bit towards the street. Like right there, we would have our barbecue pit and cook out.
And so this is, I guess, what people would describe sort of as a breezeway. It would
No, towards the street.
towards the
Yes,
street. Okay.
where the fence is.
Okay, over here.
Yes, sir, right there.
Oh, okay. So y'all cook out
Yeah,
out the
because
parking lot.
if we cook out right there, they can call the fire department.
All right. Well, thank you. I didn't even think about that, but yeah, there's fires all the time like that.
Yeah,
So y'all move it out to the outside over here in the parking lot, so it'd be for safety reasons. for
Yes.
Cooking. Okay. And did this little breezeway, I see that there's stairs. You can't really tell very well. It's pretty good on the screen there, but it looks like there's a platform up here for the upstairs, and then there's a staircase that leads down to the ground level. Is that right?
yes,
And at times, did y'all ever hang out in that area?
yes, we did.
And that's an area that maybe y'all, what did y'all do in that area?
Sit and talk,
Okay.
laugh.
I
The
mean,
little girl, I would walk, we have a dog, we did have a dog, Coco. And we would, let her play right there with Hennessy.
okay.
So they just played around there for, we would talk.
And y'all, and that was over a course of weeks or months?
Yeah, like, the weekend, we'd get off of work, they'd get off of work, and, we'd hang out.
Okay. And then, so y'all had I guess what you could say, just a relationship at least with them as neighbors.
Yes,
And going forward then, the individual Luis Alvarado, do you know who that is?
yes,
And did that individual move into the apartment complex?
yes,
And is that the individual that you put an X on state exhibit number 3 and also number 2, that's where he lived?
yes,
And are you able to identify him? Do you know if he's in the courtroom today?
yes.
And can you please just point him out and identify an article of clothing he's wearing,
He's wearing a blue shirt.
the blue shirt? And is this the individual that you saw shoot your husband?
Yes,
And let's go back to that date that he moved into the apartment complex. Do you recall roughly how long he had lived in that apartment complex prior to the actual shooting?
I say about 5 months.
Okay. And so during that time, did y'all have interactions, or did you have interactions with him?
No,
Did you ever talk to him?
no,
Did Santos ever talk to him?
no,
Did they have discussions ever?
yes,
And so interaction, that's an interaction, right? A discussion, a speaking to. So, you recall, were you present during those discussions?
I was by my car. There was a lot of incidents happening with him shooting the guns.
Who's him?
Alvarado shooting the guns at the apartments. And I didn't want Santos to address him because I didn't have a good feeling about him because there was a lot of stuff going on at the apartments when he moved in. And
Let me stop you right there. You said when he moved in. Prior to that, was there a lot of things going on in the apartment?
yes, I mean, like I said, you know the streets. I mean, you don't know the streets, but you know when there's rascals around. You know, you can tell, especially when they're popping their guns off, and you know they have they're partying. You know they're drinking, they're arguing out there.
And you're saying, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're saying they.
Alvarado and his guests.
Okay.
And,
So there's a lot of drinking and there's a lot of guns involved.
Yes.
And you know if anything else is going on that you saw?
Just that. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I heard about, but not that I saw.
Hold on one second. I don't want about what you heard about because that would not be you firsthand seeing it. But seeing and hearing things that you saw with your own eyes.
Yes.
Because the other would be hearsay, okay?
Yes.
So. To be fair, it's not necessarily that the defendant moved in and then all this bad stuff started happening. It had been going on before and it went on after he moved in. It's just that he brought some element to it also. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And again, have you ever seen the defendant with a gun
Yes.
before the night of the shooting?
Yes.
And was he known to carry a gun?
Yes. He would stand at his front door with no shirt on, and he would have the gun in between his pants.
And why would he be standing doing that?
Object to lack of personal knowledge.
She's describing exactly what she saw.
That'll be overruled if you know.
Yes, I do know.
You can answer. the
She
question.
knows why he would have a gun in his belt.
If she knows.
No, I don't know why he would have a gun. I mean, he would
No,
have a
objection.
gun at the door. He had the gun all the time.
All right. You can ask your next question.
Thank you. I think your last comment that the defendant always had a gun on him.
Yes, sir.
And let me ask you, did Santos have a gun on him?
No,
And did he ever have a gun on him?
no,
If somebody said that Santos had shown a gun to the defendant, who would be telling the truth?
I know for a fact he didn't have a gun
And how do you know for a fact that Santos never or didn't have a gun?
because we wouldn't even be here.
And what do you mean by that?
Because if Santos would have had a gun, and like I said, like again with the streets, if Santos carried a gun, he would be alive right now because he would not have given, knowing a gun is facing towards us and him,
Well, I mean,
someone to hurt me. He would have protected me.
with that gun
Yes, he would have,
in self-defense.
in self-defense.
And so and I'm asking rather before that night, did he have a gun on him?
No,
And if somebody said that it was shown to the defendant you're saying that you don't recall Santos having a gun or being in possession of a gun.
No, he didn't have a gun.
And let's talk about the day before the shooting. That day that the fight between Charlie and the defendant happened. Do you recall that day?
Yes,
What was happening that day? Do you recall?
yes.
Well, tell the jury what was happening.
Do you want me to tell you?
Let me
the-
break it down.
the
That's really
day?
general, isn't it?
Yeah, the whole day or just the
Let's
day?
break it down to that night. So- Okay, thank you. Let's just break it down to that night. Because in during the day, it's just during the day. So let's talk about during the night that the fight happens. Were you outside during that fight
Yes,
between Charlie and the defendant?
yes,
And did you happen to film that fight?
yes, I did.
And you film a portion, a small portion of the big, it looks like of just the actual fist fight. And then you actually had another video of the after part, is that correct?
Yes,
And on those two particular videos, it shows Charlie and the defendant in a fist fight. Is that correct?
yes,
You can be heard talking on that.
yes,
Were there any guns involved?
yes.
And what guns were involved?
The car that pulled up with Alvarado in it, the guy had, well, it was an AK, a long gun. And it was his guest holding the gun, making sure that nothing happened during that fight. During that fight, Alvarado was threatening Santos and Charlie on the video.
Well,
And
we're gonna see the video in a second, right?
Okay.
And we're gonna enter this video into evidence. So, you say that there's guns involved, but at the actual fight, who fought? Just Charlie?
Charlie and Alvarado.
And there was no guns involved there. Was there any shooting that night?
No,
Was there any guns pointed at Santos or you or Charlie?
once again, the guy that was holding the gun was standing towards the door, like he was standing at the door
The door of what?
of Alvarado's apartment. And it was pointing to make sure that nobody had guns.
And did anybody else have guns? Did
No.
Santos have a gun?
Nobody had
Did
guns.
Charlie have a gun?
No, he did not.
Did you have a gun?
No,
And so then when the fight happens, what happens after the fight?
after the fight,
Or, yes, after the fight.
well, after the fight, the cops were called.
And who calls the cops? Do you
I
know?
called the cops,
You did?
yes, and I even lied to the cops.
You lied to the cops? Why did you lie to the cops?
I lied to the cops because I didn't want any retaliation. I just wanted them to stop. I just wanted everybody to go into their apartment.
And is
And
that what happened after the cops were at?
yes,
Did anybody get arrested that night?
no, because I didn't tell the cops, the officers who was fighting. I just wanted everybody to stop.
Now, that particular night, did Santos fight anybody?
No,
And so, I mean, he's gonna be seen on video. Did he do anything else other than just, let's say, speak or say stuff?
no, he didn't do anything.
And so you actually called the cops that night. They came out,
Yes.
they lied so that nobody would get in trouble.
Yeah, well, not just in trouble, but like I said, I had witnessed other things happening at Alvarado's apartment, and I knew that they had guns, and I didn't want them to come and, shoot up our apartment.
And so. Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm gonna show you what's been marked, state exhibit number 4. And also number 5. These are CDs, obviously, or DVDs. But are these the copies of videos that you supplied to the detective and also to the DA's office?
Yes,
And these are from about the fight, is that correct?
yes.
No objection.
State exhibit number 4, number 5 will ask to be entered into evidence, Your Honor, with no objection.
All right, states exhibit number 4 and 5 are admitted without objection, and you may publish.
Thank you, Your Honor. What we're gonna do is play state exhibit number 4 first, and it does have audio, is that right? Thank you.
Go ahead. Right here. Call the fucking cop.
Okay. Play that one more time. Judge, you don't mind, I'm gonna play it one more time just because audio and.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now. That video shows 2 individuals in a fist fight. Who was the bigger individual? That's the heavy individual.
Charlie.
And then Charlie Araga. Is that a last name? And then who was the other individual?
Alvarado.
And Alvarado is seen punching at Charlie, and Charlie is seen punching back at him. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you also hear some background of an individual, a female voice. Whose female voice is that?
Mine.
And you're speaking at that point.
Yes.
And you state something on there about the cops, or call the cops, or cops that are coming. Is that right?
Yes.
And then you also hear another individual on that video saying, I think something like, keep going, or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, he's saying rock 'em.
Rockham?
Yeah,
And who is that saying that?
Santos.
Santos is saying that, and he's saying that to who?
He's telling Charlie.
He's telling Charlie to be, to fight harder or do better or something.
Yeah,
Okay. That's the first video. Let's go ahead and play state exhibit number 5. Which is a little bit longer video. Is
may
that
I
right?
say something? On this next video, you have to pay attention because you can
Objection,
hear my
non-responsive.
All
Judge.
right, so-
You
mouth.
gotta- you-
So
Yeah.
that objection will be sustained. You're only allowed to
Oh,
answer questions.
sorry.
No problem.
I apologize.
Hold on one second. Is there anything in particular on this next video that you would like to point out?
Yes, you can hear my voice loud, so you have to pay attention over my voice.
Okay, so because there's other things going on,
Yes.
other audio
Yes,
or speaking, is that right?
yes.
Okay. But this is entered into evidence, so the jury would be able to see it even later on in deliberations. Thank you.
You know that. And anyway, I know something saying, and you wanna bump this, throw that. You can't shit, he ain't gonna be shit.
You're gonna fucking get Cops are coming. Fucking cops are coming. Fucking cops are coming. Cops are fucking coming. Cops are coming. Cops are fucking coming. Cops are fucking coming. I got everything on video. Cops are fucking coming. Here they come. Here they come. Right here. Here they come. Upstairs, nigga.
Okay. I can hear some language on there. And you state, is that your voice, by the way?
Yes,
As you say, you're gonna get caught up, nigga. Is that right? And who are you speaking to?
I'm speaking to Santos
And why were you saying that to Santos?
because he was over there, like walking that way, and he had the monitor on.
Monitor on his ankle.
Yeah.
That he's not supposed to, it's explained to the jury, the monitor. you're not
Whenever you
supposed-
have a monitor, you're not supposed to go certain distance from your house, apartment.
So you're telling him, in a sense, to get back.
Yeah,
And so on that particular night, did he ever confront, or let me ask you this, did he ever hit the defendant?
no,
The defendant ever hit him?
no,
And you see the defendant in the video talking to Charlie after the fight. Is that right?
yes,
This is after the fight happened.
yeah,
And you can hear the language in there, and you can hear you also saying, did you also state again, cops are coming?
yes,
And the cops in fact came that night, is that right?
yes,
And it's not on the video, but the cops show up, and that's when you lie to the cops because everybody went to their separate apartments.
yes.
Okay. Let's go to the next day. Well, let me ask you, did anything else happen that night that's relevant to this case, like during the night or anything else?
No, but if I could, when you asked if that was my voice, I'm telling Santos that because remember I said earlier he had another guest there and that guy was standing at the door.
Mhm.
Had nothing been done, it would have been a very bad ending for all of us.
Okay. And you're saying, I'm sorry, I'm a little to clarify this, Santos's friend or the defendant's friend?
Alvarado's friend,
Alvarado, the defendant in this case,
yes,
because this is the individual that you said had a like an AK type
Yes.
rifle. Okay. So going into the rest of the night after the cops leave, the rest of the night goes, I guess, peacefully, relatively, is that correct?
yes.
Okay, so the next day, let's talk about the next day, the day of the shooting. Throughout the day, did Santos and the defendant ever have speak to each other?
I did not see if they did spoke,
Mhm.
but Santos did come in the apartment mad,
Upset,
yes,
and that's during the daylight hours.
yes,
When it's daylight outside. And again, you can't really tell the jury because it'd be hearsay of what he exactly said, but you said that I guess his demeanor, his attitude, he was upset.
yes. He came inside. He had our dog on the porch because he couldn't go downstairs like all the way. And Alvarado, I guess, Alvarado had his window getting fixed. And I was inside, so when when Santos came inside, he was mad. And I was like, I asked him, I was like, he goes, I'm gonna talk to him.
Okay.
Judge.
All right, that'll be sustained.
Okay, again, hearsay is
Yeah.
what somebody else says to you,
Yeah.
okay? So you can't talk about what Santos exactly told you. But You said he was upset with them.
Yes,
Now, you said the defendant was outside though, getting his window fixed.
yes,
What window fixed?
his back window.
Back
in his
window
Car,
on his car.
yes.
And what kind of car, do you remember what kind of car the defendant drove?
A Lincoln,
What color was it?
white,
How many doors did it have?
4,
And it was actually, was it in one of these videos? You could see it in the video?
yes.
Okay.
All right, and just one moment, sorry to interrupt. Does anybody need a break? I hear chairs moving around. Is everybody okay? All right, you can continue.
Thank you, Judge. I think I just stated that it's in one of the videos that you see it in the video, and actually another video that may be coming in later, it's actually in that video. So he was getting the back window fixed on that vehicle.
Yes,
Do you have any idea how that got broken?
I don't know.
Okay. Did Santos break it?
No, his baby's mom broke it.
Santos's baby's mom?
Alvarado's.
Okay, thank you. Alvarado's baby's mom, so, okay. So after that, after you see that Santos is upset with them, or you assume he was upset with that individual, after speaking with them, is there any more interaction between Santos and the defendant
No,
during the day?
no,
So then going into the night of the shooting, were you ever outside?
yes.
And this is before the shooting, who else was outside? Earlier in the night?
Before it happened,
Yes, ma'am.
Charlie, D, their baby Hennessy, me and Santos.
Okay, so the four of y'all outside with their little child. And where are y'all hanging out at?
We're at the bottom steps.
Bottom steps? Can you put that? Oh, it's up there. Okay, state exhibit number 3 again. You're saying at the bottom of the steps, and are you mentioning the bottom of the steps? Right here?
Yes.
And-
Well, the bottom, that's not the other bottom.
Over here or over
Yeah,
here?
because there's one pair of steps and then there's like a little concrete path and then there's another set of stairs.
Okay,
So we were at the end. I guess you would call that little hallway, but we were at the end of the stairs.
okay. So, but in this breezeway? area?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Was the defendant out there?
Alvarado?
Yes.
No,
And so he was not out there when y'all were hanging out.
no.
And at some point in that night, did the defendant ever come outside and did y'all ever see the defendant when y'all were hanging out?
I saw him pass by once, but he left very quick.
And when he was leaving, did he walk away or did he drive away? How
He
did,
drove in his white car.
and when he was going to his car, was there any, was anybody speaking with him?
No.
No? Did he do anything?
No,
And then what did he do when he got to his car?
the first time when he left
When he
very
left for
quick.
the
Yeah,
earlier in the night?
he just left and he didn't even pass through us because there's 2 entrances
Mhm.
to the apartment complex. It's Somerset and then there's Pyron.
Okay, and I'm gonna show you what's marked state exhibit number 2 again. And this would be Pyron right here, is that right?
Yes,
And then this main street would be Somerset,
yes,
and then there's 2 entrances, one off of Pyron and one off of Somerset, is that correct?
yes.
Okay, and where did the defendant usually park his car?
In front of his apartment.
And so his apartment's over here, so that would be one of these parking spots?
Yeah, it'd be the first one where your thumb is right there.
Okay, and so then when he leaves that day, y'all are over here, and then he walks to his car and leaves, is that right? Had he talked to anybody before he left?
No,
And when he gets in his car, he leaves, and what entrance does he leave out of?
Somerset.
So off the Somerset location at the end.
Yes,
And then does the defendant ever come back later?
yes, he does.
And when he arrives, were y'all still outside?
Yes.
And what were y'all were just hanging out outside still?
Actually, we should have been upstairs already, but we played a joke on Charlie and Dee. We had their phone. And we're just laughing about it that we had their phone, and then we played it off. We called them and whatnot. Then we came downstairs, so we started talking again. And that's when we see the defendant pull up,
Okay, and what entrance did the defendant pull up in?
comes in from Pyron.
Hiram, which would be this location over here. This entrance.
Yes,
And so he entered, and then did he go straight or did he turn down this way
he turned down.
in front of the apartment complex? And then he drove, where did he drive to?
He was driving to his apartment, but before when he was passing us, he saw us out there and he pointed the gun at us.
Pointed the gun at you,
Yes,
had the gun out,
yes,
and you saw that in his car when he drove
Yes.
by.
yes.
And did you see it?
Yes, I saw it.
Do you remember if Santos saw it?
That's why Santos got so mad.
Okay. And do you remember if Charlie saw it?
Charlie did see it.
And what about, do you know if Dee or Darietta saw it?
I'm not sure because she had her 2-year-old baby with her. So she would come in and out,
Okay. So you mean come in and out of?
like, well, how 2-year-old are, you let them play right there and they're like running towards the back and, I can't say for sure if she saw because she had the baby.
Okay. So when the defendant ends up pulling up and then he's parked in front of his apartment again,
Yes,
what does Santos do at that point?
he walked over there.
He walked over there? And what did you do?
I was like, telling him like to come back. And
Let me ask you a question. Did you start filming with your cell phone?
yes,
And well, let me ask you this. Why did you start filming?
well, he pointed a gun at us already and Santos was gonna confront him. And I felt like something bad was gonna happen. I didn't get a good feeling.
And so that's why you start filming this? And does Santos run at the defendant?
No,
What did he do? Describe to the jury what he did.
he's going up to him. Alvarado's getting out of the car and Santos had seen that already, that he pointed the gun. And he's going over there to him like, Santos is telling him, come here, let me talk to you, come here. And Alvarado has the gun in his hand and he's like, nah, like, you had your chance. And, he still has the gun, and it's getting Santos even mad, So he was mad. Santos was upset that he had the gun.
And so, again, you videotaped this portion, is that right? So the jury's gonna see this video,
Yes,
okay? And did did Santos say anything that you could hear? Did he want to fight
yes.
the defendant?
He wanted to fight him. He was calling him out. And that's when I stopped recording and handed my device to Charlie. I told Charlie what you're gonna see and hear. I told him, I'm gonna need this in case something happens. So at that point, I put my life at risk to go into the middle to try to divert, a confrontation. which was happening really quick. And in the video, you'll see, I told him to, put it down, because you're gonna go to prison, you're gonna kill me and you're gonna kill him. And he didn't put it down. And
So let me ask you some more questions about that. Were you got in between them,
yes,
and did Santos just walk away, or what did he do at that point?
no, Santos was too heated. Like, he just told me, go, like, get back.
Did at that point, did Santos ever rush the defendant?
No,
Meaning,
could have, but he didn't. He wasn't trying to hurt him.
You're not trying to hurt him. You wanted to get in a fist fight with him, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't want to hurt him.
Well, I mean, like I said, you want me to explain how the streets are, guys like that, they, not guys like that, but in the streets, it's like you fight somebody, you stand up and you shake their hand and you act like nothing happened.
Like the night before.
Exactly.
I mean, the videos of the fight show they fought, they hit each other. And then the next video shows them talking and mouthing to each other still, but then walking away alive and not shot.
Object to the form of the question, he's
Exactly.
testifying. Then
Right,
some of the
that'll be-
question.
That'll be sustained.
Okay. But the previous night, that fight was he called him out. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Charlie did. And then
Yes.
they fought. And then they walked away.
Yes.
And so the night of the shooting, when you're in between them, at some point, do you walk out of the way?
Yes.
Okay, you just gotta say it out loud for the court.
Yes, I walked away.
Thank you. And are you saying anything to the both? I mean, were you saying it to both of them, or were you saying anything to any of these individuals, Santos and also the defendant? Were you saying stuff?
I was saying it to both of them. When I backed out, like when I backed off, like I went back and I said, I'm gonna call the cops. I was like, you want to go to jail for killing me, then what you'll hear, then that's fine. And then I told them I'm calling the cops.
And do you end up calling the cops at some point?
I do, and you can hear me.
And is it before the shooting or after the shooting or during the shooting?
It's before the shooting.
And you have two phones, or I mean, because
No, I asked Charlie if I could told him give me a phone. So you can hear in the video when he hands me a phone.
you can hear Charlie say something to you.
Here,
He says here,
this is Maria here,
okay, and that's when he's handing you a phone to call the police.
police.
Okay. And when you're watching this, you call the cops, you say, when does the shooting happen?
It happens like a few seconds after I call the cops.
And do you tell the defendant and Santos anything at that point? Right before the shooting? It's on the video, right?
Yes, it's on the video.
Okay. Let's talk about the after the shooting. When the shooting starts, you can be heard on the video, is that right?
Yes,
And the shots can be heard on the video, right?
yes.
What does Santos do when the shooting starts?
He runs away. He jumps out of the way.
And where? I'll show you what's marked exhibit number 6. Do you recall where the shooting happened? Where the first shot happened? And then I want you to draw a line of where, when the shooting started, where did Santos run to?
Santos is running over here.
And then what happened at that point?
He shoots him
Okay. And where does Santos end up?
over here.
Okay. And put an X where Santos ends up. And then also put an arrow in the direction that he's trying to run. Okay. And to be fair, this is for a Google map, is that right?
Yeah.
So these cars aren't accurate of where they are, is that
No.
right? Okay. So state exhibit number 6, Lieutenant for Defense, asking for it to be admitted into evidence.
I would object, Judge. There's arrows on here and I didn't even see when she's drawing them and what she's referring to.
Can I see State's exhibit number 6, please? All right, defense, if you want to approach,
Judge, I think the proper way, if we could have her show it.
now, if you want to approach the witness and state if you want to re-ask your question so that defense counsel will know what the arrows and the X's signify.
Well, I think the jury needs to see it as well, Judge.
Defense, if you want to approach the witness with the state and see what those arrows and X's are that she's drawing to, please.
And I'm showing you what's marked state exhibit number 6 again. You marked a dot. Is that where the shooting first occurred?
No.
And then you drew a line, is that correct?
Yeah.
And then, and you put an arrow sign of where, and what is that of?
That's Santos going that way.
Running away? And then you put an X, and that's where Santos ended up.
Yes.
Okay. At this time, Your Honor, we urge state exhibit number 6 to be admitted to evidence.
Any objections?
No.
All right, state's exhibit number 6 is admitted without objection.
May I publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. Now, showing this jury state exhibit number 6 at this time, this dot, what is this dot, that blue dot that's on that?
That's where he shot.
That's where.
I'm sorry. Oh, man.
Who shot?
That's where Alvarado
Shot at that.
shot at Santos.
And then you drew a line here with an arrow. What is that line in that arrow?
That's Santos running back away.
Running back,
Running away.
running away. And then you put an X. What is that?
That's where he stayed. That's where he was. He landed.
Now. When the defendant shot at Santos, did you see all the shots?
I didn't see all the shots.
What did you do when the shots started?
I'm sorry. I didn't see all the shots, but I saw. I didn't see the last shot. I did see when he shot the first couple of times, but I didn't see the last one.
This is important, so let me ask you this question. You said you saw the first couple shots. What was Santos doing when those first couple shots were going on?
It was like dodging, like dodging.
Was he running at the defendant?
No, he was running away, dodging like away from him. Like he knew he was getting shot at, so he was trying to make it miss the shots.
So was he standing like this?
Yeah, like, but bobbing and weaving, like when
You gotta describe it to me. You saw it. You described to this jury of what happened.
when he's getting shot at, he's moving, maybe maybe the bullets will miss. You know, I mean, he's moving out the way. He's trying to run for cover.
Okay, he's trying to run for cover. So I want you to describe, because what you're just, I mean, I'm gonna stand in front of you, okay? And Judge, may I approach?
Yes.
Thank you. Do you recall from the video, you've seen the video, right?
Yes,
I'm Santos. You're the shooter. You shoot at me, right? What does Santos do?
jumps out of the way, turns
Jumps out of the way.
around
Which way does he go?
that way.
This way?
Yeah,
So he starts going this way
yes.
and he runs.
No, he's like going like that, like
Like
with his
this.
legs. Yeah, like ducking.
Okay, so hunched over.
Yeah, he's,
Okay, knees bent, sort of
yes,
going away from the defendant that's
Yes.
shooting at him.
yes,
His back towards the defendant
yes,
from that arrow indicating that that dot is where the defendant is at. Is that correct?
yes,
And Santos is running, hunched over, trying to, you said, get cover. Is that right?
yes.
Thank you. I'm going to show you what's Park State Exhibit number 7. This is another CD or disc. Do you recall what is on that disc?
Yes,
And what is that?
it's the night that Alvarado killed Santos.
And it fairly and accurately depicts what happened that night.
Yes,
Your Honor, we'll offer State Exhibit number 7 into evidence tendered to defense for any objection.
No objection.
Part six, exhibit number 7 is admitted without objection.
Maybe published to the jury, Your Honor.
Yes.
This also has audio on it, is that correct?
yes.
Hey, you don't bust that way, my nigga. Don't bust that way, bitch. Hold on, hold on. You gotta call my girl.
If you shoot that gun, if you shoot the gun, make sure you're ready to go to prison, because that's what's gonna happen. Hey, get over here, man, just let it be. Hey. If something happens.
Good. Everybody know? Yeah, which way? Okay. On that video, it shows quite a bit. It's about 5 minutes long, 5 or 6 minutes long. One, you can see yourself in that video, is that right?
Yes,
And you're in a sense trying to, what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to divert something that from happening. And can I get some water?
Well-
I mean,
Judge,
Oh, yes, I believe that there's some water. Is there some water?
we'll get you some.
sorry, Judge, I just need a little bit, some water.
Oh, it's not a problem. I believe we have some bottled water.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Okay,
I think you said
I was trying to divert
the first.
divert something from happening, for Alvarado to put the gun down, for Santos to calm down, letting them know the consequences, you know, of what can happen. You can hear me in there,
And so at times, I believe from the video, you said, let it be. You
Yeah.
remember that?
I'm telling him to let it be because Santos was very upset that he pulled a gun out and he's backing off, like, you know, he pulls up, he's showing pointing the gun at us, and he gets off and he has the gun. And like, you know, in that type of environment where we live, not all people are the same, you know, it's just some people have to live where they can afford. And you don't do that. You're taunting someone, you know, you're calling them out in a different, like, he's taunting him. He's taunting Santos in that video.
You're saying he's taunting who?
Alvarado is taunting Santos.
And how is he taunting him?
Because if you see the video, he tells him, he's like, I got this for your protection, not mine.
Okay. And so again, I think you're stating to the jury that you just, let me clarify this, that where you live in this type of atmosphere, that's what happens. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's fights, and like you saw before, the night before, I mean, it didn't end like that.
Now, also on this portion, you do hear you say something about catch you with the gun too. What does that mean?
No, there was no other gun. Santos didn't have a gun.
Let me rephrase it. I heard it on the video, but let me ask you this. You're going off to call the cops.
Yes,
And so who would get in trouble if you call the cops?
Alvarado
And
Santos.
Santos?
Yeah.
And why would he get in trouble?
Oh, he had a monitor.
So he's not supposed to be outside.
No, not that far.
Okay. And why would Santos get, I mean, I'm sorry, why would Alvarado, the defendant in this case, get in trouble?
Well, he has a gun and he's, you know, pointing it towards him.
Also in this video, you hear, I believe there's a male voice. Well, why is he saying here, Maria?
Because he handed me the phone.
The phone that was recording?
No, I'm sorry. He handed me the phone that I called the police with,
Okay.
and he was using another device to record.
Okay. The shots that you hear on there are they all at one time?
No.
Are they sort of spread out?
Yes.
So when the shooting starts, do you recall from the video where you were standing?
Yes.
And where were you standing at?
I was on the sidewalk.
The sidewalk. Is that the sidewalk near that hallway or breezeway?
Yes, but I wasn't that close to the breezeway.
You weren't that close, you're, okay. You also hear somebody scream in that video. Was that you screaming?
Yes.
When Santos is being shot at, you stated earlier in testimony, you saw him running away, sort of hunched down, trying to get covered. Did you ever come face to face with Santos?
Yes. When that happened, I actually froze.
So do you sort of remain where you're at?
Yeah, like I froze. Like I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
Okay.
I mean, like I froze.
And from an earlier exhibit, Santos, when you said he ends up, expiring, dying, was he close to that breezeway?
Yes.
And were you then face to face with Santos at that point?
No. Santos was, like trying to get to cover, and I had froze. And that's when I came contact with Alvarado. And
Was that contact? What do you mean?
we looked at each other, and that's when he did another shot. And then I went between the cars. And then I looked over the car and I saw him throw his gun in the car and he took off.
And you say he,
Alvarado took off going towards Somerset, towards downtown.
okay. And where was Santos?
Santos was on his knees. He was on his knees. And that's when I grabbed him and I laid him on his side. And there was people that came to help also. And I tried to perform CPR on him. And
And then officers arrived.
officers arrived.
Do you recall how long it took for the officers to arrive?
The officers, they got there pretty fast. I can't say minutes because I was not even thinking about minutes.
Did you call the police or did anybody call the police again?
Yes, like my neighbors had told me they called the cops. I didn't see anybody else call the cops.
Yeah, Mayor Gertrude?
Yes.
I mean, I want to show you a picture of him, and I just want you to tell me if you can identify the individual that's in the picture, okay? I'm gonna show you what's marked state exhibit number 8. Can you identify this individual in this picture?
Santos
Cedillo,
Cedillo.
and this was your husband.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, Your Honor, we'll pass the witness.
All right, defense.
Thank you. Okay, Fernandez. The prosecutor asked you about Santos being to prison before and that after that, y'all were just living your life and him staying out of trouble, correct?
Yes.
But you hadn't been staying out of trouble. In fact, he was on bond for 2 felonies. Isn't that correct?
He was on bond.
For 2 felonies, correct?
I'm not sure if there was 2 felonies.
You mentioned that he didn't have a gun and that he hadn't been carrying a gun, correct?
No.
Don't you agree that one of the felonies he's on bond for being a felon in possession of a firearm?
That's because they said somebody saw him. They did not find a weapon and they did a search on his vehicle and mine and the property and they found no weapon. That
You
was-
stated, I'm sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
That was someone saying that they saw him with one.
Okay, and the other felony besides felon on possession of a weapon, that was a charge of violent offense against another individual, correct?
That did not live there at the property.
You say that y'all got along with your neighbors. But Santos really never got along with Lewis, did he?
We never talked to Lewis.
Yeah, but Santos never got along with him, did he?
I mean, we didn't talk to him, so there was not for anything to get along with. We spoke, I mean, like if he were like, like hi, like that, I mean, but we didn't talk to him. He didn't talk to him.
Let me put it a different way. Throughout the time that Lewis was there up to the shooting, Santos became more and more upset with Lewis. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
And I think you even told the detective in your statement that I think you called it bed talk, like when you were right before y'all would go to bed, Santos would be talking about Lewis and how upset he was with him, correct?
no, not that he was upset. When you say bed talk, yes, we would talk and like, man, Like, these young kids don't even get it out here. They want to be shooting the guns and they want to be acting, a certain way out here.
He was
That's what-
talking about Lewis though, correct?
Yeah, he was talking about,
So even up until the time he's going to bed, he's talking about being upset with Lewis.
not upset with Lewis, no.
You're stating that when there was an issue that he felt that he would address things, correct?
Yes,
And that there was levels to that, correct? That's what you stated?
yeah,
Pardon me?
yes,
And so Santos did end up confronting Lewis at first and having a talk with him.
they chatted, yeah.
They
Yes.
chatted, and that's when, I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak over you.
This when he did, see, you're asking me this, I was not there, I was at work, and because when I got home from work, he told me he talked to Lou because they were shooting the guns towards my car, and I begged him not to talk to him.
Okay,
But
let
he
me,
still-
let me ask you about that, because you talked about the problem he had was lots of incidents with Lewis shooting guns at the apartments.
Yes,
How many times did y'all call the police to make a report that Lewis or any of his friends were shooting guns at the apartment?
oh, you can't do that. You heard me say earlier, I lied
Yes,
to the cops.
I'd like you to answer the question directly. How many times did you call the police to make a report about Lewis or anyone else shooting guns there?
I called the cops, but I never said who it was.
Okay, so,
I remained anonymous.
okay, did you talk to the detective about that when you made a statement?
No,
In fact, you never told the detective that Santos's problem with Lewis was that he had been shooting his gun at the apartments. You never told the detective that, did you?
they took me into questioning like 2-3 hours after this happened. The detective didn't ask me a lot of things. I mean, I
Okay.
didn't know, I had never been through something like
Stop,
this.
please, Mr. Hernandez. Judge, could I ask to instruct the witness to answer the question?
All right, so this is what I'm gonna ask. All right, when a question is asked, to make it easier for the court reporter. So, and I know sometimes people don't testify, so wait till the question is asked and then just answer the question that's asked of you. And for all parties who are asking questions is once the question is asked and the witness has begun to answer, let her answer. If there is an objection, stop talking. And then I will make a ruling on that objection. And then if you have a question as to whether or not you should answer it after I've made my objection, just ask me.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Defense.
So once again, you never told the detective anything about Lewis shooting guns at the apartment or any of his friends shooting guns at the apartment. Isn't that true? Yes or no? No, correct? You never told the detective anything about that. You never told the detective that that's why Charlie was upset with him. Isn't that correct? Because he had been shooting guns. You never told the detective that, did you?
Charlie was upset?
I'm sorry, that Santos was upset with Lewis because of shooting guns. You never told the detective that.
No,
You mentioned that other people made friends. Wouldn't you agree that for a short time, Charlie and Lewis had gotten to kind of know each other and hung out a little bit prior to the fight they had?
they went to school with each other.
Okay, I'll ask it again. Isn't it true that prior to the fight, Charlie and Lewis had gotten to where they were friendly and had hung out a little bit together?
Yes,
Santos didn't like that, did
you're wrong. No, that's not true.
he? Isn't it true that Santos felt that Lewis was disrespectful, so Charlie shouldn't be hanging out with him either?
No, that's not true.
Well, if Santos felt that Lewis was disrespecting everyone by shooting guns, like you say, then wouldn't he have had a problem with Charlie being friends with him?
No,
You didn't mind Charlie being friends with him?
no,
You described Charlie to the detectives as soft. You remember that?
Charlie?
Yes. When you were talking to the detectives about Charlie, you mentioned to them that he was soft, in your words. You remember that?
I don't.
Would you agree that Charlie is quote unquote soft?
It depends what he means by that.
Okay,
No, here's the thing. If you don't understand the question, just let either side know that you don't understand the question.
Okay.
So counsel, just so it can be clear,
sure.
she was telling me, what do you mean? It depends on what you mean by soft.
If you were to have used that word in talking to the detective that Charlie was soft, do you not recall why you would have said that?
I mean, I don't even remember that.
Charlie is not a tough guy, wouldn't you agree?
To an extent.
To an extent what?
I mean, anybody can be tough. I mean, you're asking me a question where it's just different sides, sir. Like, I mean, I don't know. I've seen him soft. I've seen him mad. I've seen like it just like he's a human. Everybody's like that.
Okay, well, just to move on from it then, if you would have said to the detective, Charlie is soft, you don't recall why you would have said that?
No.
Okay. I don't recall what I followed up with, but did you say that you did make police reports about Lewis shooting guns anonymously?
Yeah, but I just said the neighbor. I never said like I didn't want no type of retaliation or the cops to come back to my apartment.
Yeah, but did you say you did make some reports
Yeah.
anonymously? And do you know the cops went out to investigate?
They'd pass by. They
So
would pass by.
you made anonymous reports of someone shooting off a gun in the apartments and all the police did was pass by?
Yeah, because I didn't leave an address. They're not gonna go knock at everybody's door.
Well, what would that accomplish to call and say someone's shooting a gun in apartments and not give them the address of the apartments?
It would stop the shooting. They see cops, so they would stop.
So did you tell them what apartments?
No, I didn't tell them. I told them the apartment names. I didn't tell them the apartment number.
How many times did you do that?
It happened quite a few times. I can't tell you a number. It happened quite a few times.
That you called the police and told them that?
Yes.
That they passed by but weren't able to stop and talk to anybody about that?
No, I called the cops anonymously and they would pass by. If you do not leave the cops an address.
You don't
they're
need
not-
to explain, miss. I'm just asking you to answer the question. You did that a few times anonymously?
Yes.
You didn't tell the detective about that either, did you?
No, I didn't tell the detective.
That there was a problem with him shooting guns in the apartments. You didn't tell him anything about that, did you?
No.
Now, you stated though that you didn't want Santos talking to Lewis because Lewis and his guests were doing a lot of drinking and there were guns involved. Is that right?
Yes.
Why didn't you want Santos to tell him anything about that?
Cause I already knew. I mean, like, I didn't want Alvarado to pull a gun out on him or their guests and then it'd be like worse, you know?
Were you afraid of how Santos would address things, to use your words?
No, I was not afraid how Santos would address things.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that the that when it's kind of jumping around a little bit, but that's the order I have it in my notes. So I'm just going to ask you this. When you talk about when Lewis drove back to the apartments, back to his home the night of the shooting, that he pointed a gun at y'all. Can you describe how he pointed that gun at y'all?
Like that,
Like, so
pointed it out, it's like
he's
that.
driving and he just like points it out the window?
Yeah, but like, so it's the apartment complex. He's in the apartment complex, okay? So he passes by and of course he sees us out there
Mhm.
and say the jury is us and I'm Alvarado and I'm passing by and he's like that, pointing it at us. And then he goes and he parks.
You didn't tell the detective in your statement that he pointed a gun at you that night, did you?
I believe I did.
You told him that he waved the gun. You didn't say that he pointed it at y'all.
Yes, I told that's how he did it.
But that's not how you described it to the detective, is it?
I don't even remember what I told the detective. I
You
mean,
also didn't tell the detective that that's what upset Santos that night was because Lewis had pointed a gun at y'all. You didn't tell the detective that that's what upset Santos, did you?
I'm not sure.
Because that would be a huge part of what happened, wouldn't you agree?
That is, yes.
How would you explain why you wouldn't have told that to the detective?
Because my husband died in my arms. And I've never seen anything like that. My mind wasn't even there.
But you stated that you have called the cops before and lied to them before.
I did, yes. Not that night of the fight, yes, I did.
You didn't tell the cops that somebody was out there with an AK-47, correct?
No, I did not.
Now, we saw the video of Charlie and Lewis fighting. It wasn't really much of a fight. It was a couple punches back and forth. Wouldn't you agree?
It was a fight.
Do you think that's the kind of fight between two people who really have a problem with each other and really go at it? I mean, you're the one from the streets and it's different and it's a different world and people fight. I mean, so I assume you're kind of an expert on street fighting by the way you're talking.
Charlie fell because he knew that guy had a gun and he would have ended up just like
Charlie what? Fell?
Charlie, yeah, like, it doesn't show in the video, but Charlie fell back. And he fell back, so he fell back on purpose because Charlie would have took him. I mean, he was bigger than Santos, but he fell back because that guy, his guest, Alvarado's guest, was at the door with an AK. If Charlie would not have fell back like that, they would have shot all of us.
So Charlie would have kept fighting.
Yes.
And beaten. Let me ask the question first. If Charlie would have kept fighting and beaten Lewis up, the guy with the AK would have shot all of you.
Yes.
So that's why Charlie stopped fighting.
Yes.
Wouldn't you agree in the video? I mean, this is just two guys supposedly settling something, right? Just a little friendly fight, right?
No.
What was it then? Why were they fighting?
They were fighting because Alvarado wanted Charlie to go to a strip club that night. And this is what I didn't even say this and when
Finish saying it.
Jason was well, he wanted Charlie to go to a strip club with him, and Charlie and Santos were on the porch, and that's when they were talking like back and forth from Alvarado's apartment, and Charlie was standing up by my apartment, and Alvarado had urined on the side, but he had pulled, his thing out, and Charlie was already mad about that, and then they had left.
Let me stop you there. Charlie got mad because he urinated outside of his apartment?
He pulled it out, like he disrespected him, like he pulled it out. And he had told him,
Disrespected Charlie
yes,
by pulling his penis out?
yes.
Did you see this?
Yeah, I turned away and I turned away. I was sitting at the top of the stairs and Charlie was standing up at the first apartment, and Alvarado, I guess he was leaving in another vehicle, but I guess he had did that because Charlie didn't go with him to the strip club.
Okay, let me stop you there. So to start with, Lewis invited Charlie to go with him to the strip club,
Yes.
right? Which is something that's really not consistent with someone who wants to fight with somebody. Wouldn't you agree? If you want someone to go to the strip club with you, you're cool with that person, right?
Yeah, but you didn't let me finish telling you.
Well,
Why?
I let you finish the question or the answer to the question, and that's it. If you want to explain further, Jason can ask you after we're done, okay?
Okay.
So Lewis asked Charlie to go to the club with him, right?
Mhm.
So that's something that's kind of like you're cool with somebody to ask them to go along with you, right?
Yes,
And Charlie didn't want to go, right?
no,
And you're saying that Lewis responded by pulling his penis out at him?
because he was telling him like I don't want to say those words, but they have a certain language they talk out there. I mean, I don't want to, they have a certain language how they talk out there.
Let's move on from that. So that and Santos was right there next to Charlie, correct?
No, Santos was sitting on the chair by the apartment.
Okay, but he was out there.
Yeah, he was out there.
So after Lewis left, Santos told Charlie, you shouldn't be letting Lewis disrespect you, right?
No,
Santos told Charlie, call him and tell him to come back so you can fight him. Y'all can throw rounds. Don't let him do that to you.
no,
So if Charlie said in his statement that Santos was upset and told him
I'm
those
just gonna
things,
object at this time. Defense counsel is one, getting into hearsay and also testifying.
Sustained.
so you're saying Santos had no problem with what Lewis did to Charlie if that's what he did?
Charlie heard what Alvarado told Dahlia. That's why Charlie got mad.
But my question to you is Santos is out there seeing this and Santos didn't like it either. Wouldn't you agree?
Santos was sitting on the chair upstairs and me and Dahlia were downstairs when Alvarado told Dahlia something. I can't remember what he told her, but that's when Charlie came out of the door and he was like, what? He's all like, don't be telling my girl nothing. If you have something to tell me, tell me. And that's when it started.
He told Lewis that before Lewis left?
No, he had already came back.
He already came back later that
Alvarado
evening?
had already came back.
Later that evening?
Yes,
Okay, so we're still not there yet. So Charlie didn't tell Lewis any of that when before he left to go to the club, right?
no.
But he ends up calling him and texting him to come back to fight him.
See, I don't
Right.
know about that.
Okay, that's fair enough. If you don't know, you don't know. But he's gone for a while to the club, right? Lewis is gone for a while.
I mean, he was not there. I mean, it's not like I paid attention to when he came back and all that.
Well, you were there filming the fight. That's kind of paying attention,
I
isn't it?
filmed the fight because I saw that guy with the gun and I didn't want anything to happen.
Okay,
then
well, that's not the,
We at least there's some kind of proof.
my question to you was, quite a bit of time passed between when Lewis left, had invited him to the club and then left, up until the time he came back home and they got in a fight. Hours went by, right?
I mean, you know more than me on that one. I mean,
You were there, Ms. Hernandez. I'm asking you.
and I'm telling you, yes, you're saying that correctly, but Alvarado went to where Dahlia lived, and he told her something and Charlie heard. That's why Charlie came out. So whatever text is,
Hernandez,
I'm not
that's-
sure about.
That's not my question to you. All you have to do is answer each question one by one. I was asking you about the time lapse. That's it. Simple question. That a lot of time lapsed before he came back.
Yes,
Okay. After he came back, you were there filming while they got in a fight, correct? You didn't film
I
that fight?
filmed, but it wasn't just right when he came back.
During that fight, you can hear Santos saying, rush him, drop that N word. Don't stop. Santos really wanted Charlie to kick his butt, didn't he?
Yeah,
Just answer truthfully, that's all. You really wanted to see that, didn't he?
not that you wanted to see it. I mean, like,
Charlie, and it's even seen in the video, Charlie and Lewis are talking after the fight, right?
yes.
Right? You see them talking? Lewis and Charlie aren't like talking like guys that are upset with each other after having fought. Lewis's problem is what Santos' involvement was in pushing Charlie to fight him. Isn't that fair to say?
You're asking, I don't know that.
I'm gonna
I
object.
don't know that.
I'm gonna object to speculation. You know.
Yeah, I
All right,
don't know.
sorry. Remember, when attorneys stand up to
Oh.
object, just stop speaking. It's okay. Objection is sustained.
You can see in the video that obviously Lewis is upset with Santos, correct? Because he's talking stuff to him.
Yeah,
And Santos is upset with Lewis because he's talking stuff back to him. Fair to say?
yeah,
Pretty obvious from the video, right?
yes.
You stated the rest of the night was peaceful, correct?
After the fight?
Yeah.
Yes,
Peaceful night at the apartments. No gunshots?
no, which I had said before, I don't know if it was even in what, if I told the detectives, but they were fixing his window. Someone was fixing his window outside.
But that wasn't at night after the fight though, right?
The guy, yeah, no, a guy had went out there to go look at his window.
After the fight that night?
Mhm.
But there was no incidents, right?
No, there was no incidents.
And the guy that ended up looking in window came back the next day, right?
Yes,
To fix it, right?
yes,
Okay, and we'll get to that. But that night after that fight, there was no shootings, no disturbances in the parking lot, nothing else, right?
no, I went to sleep.
Now you stated the day of the shooting, that Santos during the day had come into the apartment mad at Lewis, correct?
Well, I mean, he came in, he was mad.
And this was while Lewis was getting his windshield fixed by somebody out in the parking lot, correct?
Yeah,
And Santos even started yelling at Lewis out the window, correct?
no,
Never did that?
no.
Now Lewis ended up leaving that day after he got his window fixed. And there was nothing happened until he got home that night, correct?
Yes,
But Santos was still mad, wasn't he?
no, I mean, we were outside talking. We weren't even talking about that. Like, he wasn't mad.
Well,
You know?
Santos was mad earlier in the day at
Yes,
Lewis.
when he came inside, yes, he was mad because I don't know, I was cleaning. I don't know if
Don't guess if you don't know.
yeah, so I don't, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if there was words exchanged. I said that earlier. I don't know.
Okay, but you said you didn't hear him yelling anything out the window.
No,
Now, you stated that when Lewis got home, we're talking about the night of the shooting now, that that Santos got so mad because Lewis pointed a gun at him or at y'all, right?
yes,
That was your testimony earlier?
yes,
When he walks up to Lewis from that point that he walks up to him up until the time of the shooting, you can never hear Santos telling him anything about pointing a gun at us, do you? He never said anything like that to Lewis, did he?
No,
About don't be pointing a gun at us. Nothing like that, right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if he went up to him and I didn't hear that in the video.
Okay. That's my question, that you didn't hear any of that, right?
No.
And in fact, you went up there to break it up or to try to get Santos back and to stop. And you didn't hear him say it while you're standing right next to him either, did you?
No.
Nothing about pointing the gun, right? You're just hearing him say he wants to beat Lewis's ass, right?
Well, I mean,
It's a yes or no question.
yeah.
That's all Santos is talking about, right? Santos you knew better about what was going on, but your husband wouldn't listen to you and back off, would he?
No.
He was too fired up by that point. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, he was mad.
You weren't going to be able to stop him, right? Obviously, you couldn't. You tried, right?
Probably could have.
But you didn't.
No.
Lewis having a gun in his hand didn't stop him, right? He still kept on and on, didn't he? You stated when the shooting started, that you saw Santos jump and get out of the way, correct?
Yes.
The first shot didn't hit him, did it?
No.
Do you know if the second shot hit him? If you know.
I don't.
And then you said you only saw the first couple shots, right?
Yeah.
You didn't see all of them?
I mean, when something like that's happening, like, it's just, I mean,
Yes, ma'am. It's just a yes or no question. You didn't see all the shots, right?
no.
You were between the cars and behind the cars, correct?
No, I was on the concrete, the slab, like in front of the apartments.
Mm-hmm.
I was facing them.
And there's cars in the parking spots between you and them, correct? I mean, in part of the video, it shows you running down between the cars. Right?
What do you mean in the video?
In the video of the shooting.
No, sir, you have it wrong. I was not holding the camera when the shooting. So
Right.
that was not me.
Right.
Charlie was holding
Charlie's
it.
filming, and it shows when the shooting, it shows a person run between the cars. That's not you?
I didn't even see. Did it look like me?
I gotta be honest, I don't recall. I remember seeing an individual running
Yeah,
around the
I
cars,
know.
like dodging.
Because I froze when that happened.
Santos, at some point after the first shot or two, turns around and you say kind of dodges to get away, correct?
Yeah.
At that point, Lewis is running to his apartment to get in his, well, not to his apartment, to his car, because he ended up jumping in his car and got the heck out of there, right?
No,
No, what? Why do you mean no?
no, he didn't run to his car.
No? What did
No.
he do? Walk?
Yeah, he was walking towards his car, and that's when he stood by in front of the car, because he shot at Santos again. When Santos was on the concrete, walking, trying to walk that way,
Mhm.
he shot again and he looked at me and that's when he shot. If you listen in the video, the shots are different. The last shot, Santos, like I was in front, Santos was more over here underneath the pathway.
Mhm.
And I was standing right there. And that's when I seen him make contact with me. And that's when he shot, but I had ducked into between the cars.
So what do you mean the shot sounds different?
Yeah, you can like the shot's different. It's over, it's more, well, they're not how, like if you want to play the video again, I can show you.
You're saying it sounds differently?
Yeah, it's different. Like the shots you can, like the last shot, it's more by the sidewalk.
Would you agree that you can hear 5 shots?
There's 6 shots.
The 6th one is the door slamming to Charlie's apartment. Wouldn't you agree?
How can I agree with something that I heard 6 shots?
Do you remember telling the detective that you heard 9 shots?
I don't remember. I mean, probably would have heard like a lot of shots in a time like that.
But you're saying that you were watching Lewis and he walked to his car, didn't run?
Yeah, because Santos was already like, you know,
Was he walking calmly?
like, I mean, he was just walking. He just walked towards his car.
Walking normal like nothing had happened?
Like he didn't like nothing.
You agree when they're talking about you started it, no, you started it, and I mean between Santos and Lewis, right before the shots, they're saying you started it, no, you started it. That's nothing to do with anybody pointing a gun, right?
I don't know if they were referring to that. I don't know if he was saying, well, you started it, you know, like they don't finish their sentences a certain way that they talk out there.
Do you agree at some point that Santos even tells him it's because of all that shit that you talk? You remember hearing that in the video?
I mean, possibly.
Like he's upset with him because, to use his words, all of that shit he talks. Not about pointing a gun, right?
All right, can I have parties approach, please?
I'm about done judging you, but okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you all your lunch break right now. So we're going to come back at 1:30. There's a cafeteria downstairs, and there are also places throughout downtown if you, of course, on the Riverwalk. And then if you stay what I call above ground, there's a lot of places on Houston Street within walking distance. You've heard some evidence in this case. As you walk throughout, make sure your badges are visible so people will know that you're on a jury, because sometimes people talk about cases. The other thing is, do not view anything. If you see anything, turn it off. Don't listen to it. Don't look at any social media in regards to this case. Do not do any investigation. Everything that you need to know about this case will come from inside the courtroom. Do not start your deliberations. I'll let you know when you can start your deliberations, okay? All right, everyone, please rise for the jurors. And you all can leave the pillows there. I need to put something on the record. All right, the rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony. Oh, please be seated. The rule has been invoked. What that means is you can't discuss your testimony with anyone. The only persons you're allowed to speak to are attorneys for the state of the defense. All right, so make sure you're back here. I would say about at least 120, 125. And the jurors will be seated in the box at 1:30 so they can hear the remaining of your testimony. Yes, you can. All right. All right, everyone, we're on our break.